Hey gang, Michelle here. I am making this video, which is a easy, quick tutorial on how to do the twister hat. It's like a spiral hat, but the reason why I made this one a little bit different than the other spiral hats that are out there, number one, you don't need an odd peg loom. For this particular peg loom that I'm using, I am using the 48, let's see if I can get that to clear in, there we go, 48 peg chunky loom, which is a 5/8 gauge, and you can actually get this from knittingboard.com. And but you can pretty much use any even peg. Sorry, my husband is playing video games in the background, so bear with me. You can use any even peg or odd, as long as it's divisible by a number where you have the same amount of pegs. Now with the 41, that one might not work very well. So you can do a 36, you can use a 72, you can use 80, pretty much anything that is divisible to have an even number. So what I like to do when I mark my pegs, stitch markers are okay, but for me personally, I find that they tend to get in the way a little bit. So what I've done is just gotten some simple tape. I got it from my local hardware store, literally a couple of pennies. I'm using the 48 peg loom, and what I've done to mark this out, there's no anchor peg on this one, so I usually tape one piece, and then I go around. Now on this particular one, you're going to break it up into intervals of 8. So between my first peg, which is this one, I have it taped, but I also have a little black mark on that you can see right there, so I know that's my first peg, and the other one is 8 pegs, and then the 9th peg is going to be the first one of the other. So what I've done here is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, and then on the 9th peg, which would be the first for the second round, you're going to do the same thing. So go all the way around it and mark them off. If it's a 36, you want to break that up. So I would just do 6 of 6 areas for a 72. If you're using the 72 peg, which would be the white, for a thinner yarn, for the fine gauge, I would break it up into 8 sections of 9 or 9 sections of 8, whatever is more comfortable for you. But the reason why you do that is because as you're going around, you're going to be stepping up, as you'll see in the video. So I've already gone ahead and I've made the brim. For this particular one, I'm using Scarfy again, but I'm doing it in a gray and burgundy. I love this yarn. It's a thinner, bulky, it's a number 5, but it's a thinner yarn. You can, with this one, use a thicker number 5. Totally up to you. If you're going to use the 36 peg of the regular Nifty Knitter, you're going to want to use either a thicker 5 or even a 6. Whatever's easier for you. But the reason why I decided to make this hat like this, other than the other spirals that are out there, is because I have thick hair. And one thing that drives me crazy about some hats that are out there is they tend to be so closed that my head gets too warm and it becomes uncomfortable. So that's the reason why I made this particular hat the way I did. And you can see, I grabbed the hat here so you can see. The reason why I did this one here is because these are a little bit more open and it's a little airier. So it allows your hair and your head to breathe a little bit more for people like me that have thick hair, and heavy hats just tend to, you know, make it too warm for us. Okay. So I'm using the same type of yarn that I used on the blue one I just showed you, just a different color. All right. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want a stitch counter. So that way you know what part of the 8 that you're going to be on. It's really helpful. And let's see. I think that's pretty much it. So let's get started. Like I said, I've already created the brim on this. You can do your brim and your cast on any way that's comfortable for you. I find that the knit one, purl one, all the way across instead of folding it over. I prefer a nice light brim rather than the double knitted where it's knitted and you fold it back up. But however you want it, it's your hat. You make it any way you want with your brim. I'm just giving you guys the basics on how to do the pattern for the twisted part. So bear with me here because I'm working with the camera between my arms. Normally I have this sitting on my lap, and it makes it a little easier for me. So just bear with me, okay? So the stitches for this, super simple. You're just going to use a U-knit and you're going to use an E-wrap. So to get started, we're going to start obviously on your very first peg. Here for me, as you can see, it's marked in black. So with this one here, you're going to get started right away. You're going to do an E-wrap. You're going to stitch that off. You're going to come and do a U-wrap to the second peg next to it. Stitch that off. And then you're going to grab your first one and you're going to move it over to your second. And again, sorry, this is kind of awkward, but I'm working with this between my arms, with the camera between my arms. Now for the rest of them, you should have 2 loops on peg 2. Okay, so what we did, E-wrap, then knit, just a regular U-knit, then we grabbed what was on peg 1 and we moved it over to peg 2. So now you should have 2 on peg 2. Okay, now you're going to go to peg 3. And you're going to U-knit. Peg 4, U-knit. Peg 5, U-knit. Peg 6, U-knit. 7, U-knit. And 8, U-knit. Now you're at another number 1. So just like before, you're going to E-wrap, knit off, U-wrap on the second peg, knit off, grab the first peg, pull it over to 2, and do that. And you're just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so meet me back at my starter peg in just a minute. All right, so now at this point, you should have knitted all the way around where you're going to E-wrap the first peg, U-wrap the second peg, grab the first peg, brought it over to the second. So every second peg should have 2 stitches on it. Okay, and the first one should be empty. So first empty, second one has 2. Okay, until we're all the way back to the beginning. Now technically we are still on row 1, because what I consider row 1 is when you go over and you do your yarn overs all the way around, and then the second part of the first round for your counter is where we take that and do something with it. Okay, so what we're going to do now on this one is we have this empty peg we're starting with. We're going to simply E-wrap that. Then you're going to bring the yarn in front of the second one, and you're going to grab both of those and knit it off, and then just U-wrap the rest of the others. Okay, so let's see. Gotta see where I am with my arms like this. For 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it brings us right up to another first round. So E-wrap, bring it in front. So it's a U-wrap on peg 2. Knit off both of those. And just continue to U-wrap the rest. All right. So continue that. Meet me back at the starter peg for round 2. All right. So now we are back at our beginning peg. As you can tell with mine, there's my little black mark. And all of them are stitched off. So there's 1 on each. And no empty. None with 2 on it. Okay. So now that we are back at the beginning, you're going to, with your row counter, you're going to move it to row 2. So that way you know which peg you're on. If you have to get up and go to the bathroom, if you have to get something to drink, if you have kids, if you have animals, whatever, you know exactly where you left off. Okay. So we're going to do the same exact thing that we did on the first one, but we're doing it on 2. So right now, my working yarn is on the very last peg. As you can see, it's right here. So on this first one, because we've already moved that one, we don't have to touch that one now. We're going to U-knit that one. And we're going to work on this second peg. And we're going to E-wrap, knit off, U-wrap the third peg, carry the yarn from 2 over to 3. Again, I apologize. This is kind of awkward for me. I'm seriously going to consider getting a headband for my husband's GoPro. So now you can see that first peg has the regular yarn on it. 2 is empty. 3 has 2 strands. Okay, and you're going to work this all the way around the same way. So just like before, now that 3 has 2 on it, we're going to go to 4. We're going to knit that off with a U. 5, 6, 7, 8, and that takes us to the next section. So again, number 1, we're already done that. So we're just going to treat it just like the others. We're going to U, knit. Now on peg 2, we're going to E-wrap, knit that off, U-wrap 3, knit that off, carry 2 over to 3, slide on there. There we go. And then we just U 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You're going to continue that all the way around until you get to the very beginning peg, and then meet me back here. All right, so now, just like with the first one, just over 1 peg, back at my starting, and there's a single on 1, 2 is empty, 3 has 2, all the way around. So single, empty, 2. So all the way around the loom. So the third peg in each section should have 2 loops on it. All right, we're back to the beginning. Oops, there we go. And just like before, what we're going to do here is, again, I apologize for this being so awkward. I have to find an easier way to do this. We're going to complete round 2. All right, so for the first one, U, 2, you're just going to E-wrap and then take it over to do a U-wrap in front of 3 and knit off those 2. And then 4 through 8, we're just going to do a simple U-wrap. And keep your tension light. You don't have to pull it super hard. It's going to make it too difficult for you if you do that. Just keep it light. As you can see, I mean, I'm barely holding it in my hand while I'm working. All right. So, whoops. I was holding it so light that I slipped. Well, let me put that back on there. I got 2 here. Oh no, I only have 1. Okay, so there we go. And again, we're back to the first peg of the next section. So for peg 1, you're going to U-wrap, E-wrap 2, bring it in front of 3, grab those 2, and knit it off. And then U-wrap 4 through 8. And you're going to continue doing that through all the sections until you're back to whatever you marked as your very first starting peg. All right, so go ahead, finish your sections, and meet me back here. All right, and my second section, or excuse me, second round, the second half of my second round is done. So all of them should be with only 1 strand on each peg, all the way around. Okay, so you're just going to continue that, where now obviously we're going to be in the first part of round 3, where you're going to now on 3 you're going to E-wrap, knit it off, U-wrap onto 4, carry 3 to 4. When you're done all that, and you go to the 4th peg and continue all the way around. So you want to continue that all the way around. Even when you get to the 8th peg, you're going to continue that. So just act like 8 will go into 1. So when you get to the 8th peg, and it's time to do that one, when you carry over, it's going to carry over to 1. And then what I like to do is just restart my counter so I know I'm back at peg 1. So to get the complete length, you want to go between 8 to 8.5 inches total length. That's including your brim. Okay, if you want it shorter to make a messy bun out of it, I wouldn't go any shorter than 8 inches total. If you like it where it's closed and it's a little more slouchy, for people that have thick hair like myself, I either like doing messy buns or I like it a little slouchy. So that way, if my hair is in a bun, it actually tucks up in there. I know a friend of mine, she's got dreads and she likes them super slouchy and she just stuffs it all in there. So however you want to make it. And the clothes on it, again, that depends on if you want to make it a messy bun. It depends on if you want to make it slouchy, if you want to, you know, whatever you want to do. So this one here that I did, this is a total of 8.5 inches, I think. So it's got a little bit of slouch and it's got a lot of give to it. I'm just pulling out my tape measure so we can measure. So from the inside to the brim is 8 inches. I made this one slouchy because I personally will be keeping this hat. But I like when my hair is in a bun rather than pull it through sometimes. I just kind of tuck it up into the hat and just kind of let it lay on the back of my head. So that way I don't have to worry about it. But there you go. What I'm going to do is finish this other one off that I was working on here. And then I'll come back to show you guys how I'm going to close this particular one. I think I might make this one a messy bun. I'm making this for another barista at the coffee stand that I go to. And I'll show you how to close off with a messy bun elastic band. Alrighty, gang. So I've basically stitched all the rounds that I want to for this particular hat because I am going to make it into a messy bun using an elastic tie. This I find so easy to do rather than just leaving the long tail and then they can tie it, everything like that. So on this last round, before I start doing my cast off, as you can see, I left it where the first peg now, because I've already done the whole 8 in each section, the first peg will have 2. Once you do, normally you could do about 4 rounds, 1 through 8, 4 times, 4 sets, and then it'll give you the nice little spiral effect. It's kind of cool when you lay it down. It lays down in a spiral as well. But as you can see, it's nice and airy. I particularly like that, as I said, with thicker hair and everything like that. It's really handy for me because my head gets really hot really fast, and I know other people as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish this before we bind it off. So what did I just do with my hook? Here it is. And take my hook, and starting on the first one, obviously this one is empty, which is the 8th peg in the last section. So this is my starter peg. As you can see, I have that little black mark there that tells me that that's each, because I have it all taped off in every 8 sections. So I'm basically just going to do my U-wrap all the way across in each section, and then when I come to the empty peg, that will be again the 8th in each section. As you can see, this one here is empty. You're going to simply E-wrap and then come in front of the other one. So this one you're wrapping, and this one where it's the first peg, it has 2, you're going to U-wrap in front of that and then knit off, and you're going to do that for each section. So U-wrap all the way to the last where it's empty, 8th peg. I'm going to E-wrap and then come right in front and grab both of those stitches that are on that first peg and knit it off. And again, U-wrap all the way to the last, which is the empty one. And again, this video is basically just to show you the body. I'm sure everybody by now knows how to do a brim of their liking. There's a lot of tutorials out there where they say, you know, do the folded brim where you E-wrap the brim or knit the brim and then fold it up, put it back on the loom. I personally prefer doing it with the knit one, purl one, and making the brim like I have here. But again, it's pretty much your preference, whatever you like. That's why, you know, there's no looming police. You're not going to get in trouble. I'm untangling my yarn. You're not going to get in trouble for making the brim your way. However you want to do that. It's totally up to you. So I'm just finishing these up so that way I can show you how to decrease to make it a little easier to cast off. And don't forget, anybody who is seeing this video, if you're not already in my looming group on Facebook, you can find me there, which is Love to Loom, and I'll have a link in the description as well. Okay, so now you can see we're back at my starter peg. All of them have the yarn on it, just one strand, okay, all the way around. So to decrease, it's really simple. It's pretty much the same technique as you've probably seen many a times if you're familiar, where we're just gonna make it where only half of the pegs, so this is a 48 peg, 24 of them are going to be left with stitches on it. Okay, so what you do is you E-wrap, knit off, grab that, take it back one peg, so that way your first peg in this case has 2 and the second one should be empty. Okay, you wrap 3, you wrap 4, or excuse me, E-wrap 4, take 4 back to 3. Okay, so 1 and 3, so pretty much every other peg is going to be empty. So continue that all the way around until you have every other peg empty, and then the other ones have 2 stitches on them. And meet me back here when you get back to your starter peg. All right, and as you can see, these are my last 2. Carry that one over. All right, so now you'll see that every other peg has 2 stitches on it. And this makes it for, it's easier, especially with the elastic band, because you don't want to stretch them so much that they have too much tension and might possibly break. So every other one has 2. Now you're going to grab at least, I usually go around 1.5 to 1 3/4 of a long tail at the end to give you more than enough room to cast off and not make it so stressful to worry about, oh my goodness, am I going to have enough to get to the end? Yes, give yourself plenty of room. So with your threading needle, you're just going to slip that through. Bloop. Okay, then you're going to take your elastic band, and starting at the very first one, which is your starting peg, right there for me, it's right there. What I do is I go under, and then while it's sitting like that, I take my elastic band and just pop it right through. And then once the yarn comes through is when I lift it off. Come on, there we go. Now this is where I tend to use 2 hands, and I hold my elastic band like this. However you want to do it, that's more comfortable for you, totally your call. Again, there is no looming police. So you're just going to continue around to every peg that has 2 threads on it, piece of yarn on it. Sorry, I'm trying to concentrate, do this, and make sure that you guys can all see me. My hands are kind of in the way. I'm going to make this as awkward for me, but it's easy for you to see. Okay, so this is the 3rd one. Halfway through, and then I just put it right through. So you're going to continue that all the way around, and then we'll get back here once I am back at the beginning right here. All right, see you in a few minutes. So I'm just hopping back on real quick so you guys can see where I'm at. I'm about halfway through, and keep the elastic band through. So I'll see you in a few more stitches. All right, I'm back and I am on my last stitch to take that off the loom and through the elastic band. Okay, perfect. So there we go. Let's put that aside. And as you can see, there's my elastic band. It's wrapped in. You don't want to pull it super tight. You just want to make sure that all of these pieces that are on the band, kind of spread them out a little bit. The good thing is I use the black band for this. I have an assortment of colors. You can actually go to dollar stores, or I'm trying to remember where I got mine. I got like a whole pack of these black ones. There was like 20 in a pack, and it was only like less than $2, and they're pretty sturdy. And the thing I like about these, they're not the kind that will tangle in your hair. No metal or anything on them. And they also had colored packs, so I just got like 2 packs of these, 2 packs of the colored ones as well. So back to this. So now we're just going to stitch it together. This was my last stitch right here where my thumb is, and here was my first one. So you're basically just going to catch up a couple of these stitches here. I have like 3 of them on there. Come through and tie it off. There you go. So you don't have to worry about, like with a traditional hat, where you grab and pull it together and stitch it together and everything like that. You really don't have to do that with these messy bun hats. Makes it a whole lot easier. So there you go. Nice and tight. And scissors, loop. So this is the wrong side, and it's actually really nice either on the wrong, what we call the wrong side, which is the inside, or if you want the ribbing to show, you put it on that side. So it's really up to your preference. And then you have your tail down here. What I usually do is take my thread, and I try not to cut it right there because then it's going to leave that little piece hanging off. So just thread that through and then flip it on the inside and just stitch it in to your work. I find that is a lot cleaner that way. And then that way when you cut it, you're not going to see that knot at all. So gently just tug it through. Make sure you give it a little bit of a stretch. Grab your scissors, snip, and there you go. That is your twister hat. Super easy. And like I said, you can do this on an even peg. I used the 48, and you could probably do it on a 41, although I really don't think it's going to work out as well. You would have a section that has an extra peg on it, and it might be a little screwy, but you can totally try. I'm not saying don't try, but there you go. So if you have any questions, my information to contact me through my group on Facebook will be in the description section. Thanks everybody. Happy looming.